everyone, and welcome to the Sunday League podcast brought to you as part of our UK NFL Fantasy Football Network. I'm Samit Paul, and as always, I'm joined by TSL's co-host and co-commish, Jack Cowling. Jack, Villa are Europa League winners, Tottenham are safe, our fantasy drafts are complete, and the sun is shining. Not too shabby a week, eh?
No. The accomplishment of Spurs not quite stacking up there with the others, but it was it was a good day, and as you sort of say, yeah, it's been a hell of a week for everyone here in the UK. I will apologise because with the heat, I've got windows open, bottles of water that will be drunk, and I'm absolutely dying with hay fever as well. So there might be a few sneezes along the way. So apologies going out for the quality from my end.
He's going through it. On behalf of Aston Villa Football Club, I will gladly accept any gifts from you, by the way, after we gifted you those 3 points. Essentially sealed your safety, so you're most welcome.
I feel like we did the same for you last year in our Europa League run as well, to be honest.
True.
So, friends with our Midlands brethren.
Good stuff. So in today's pod, we'll be looking over the 5 leagues that make up our network with all 5 drafts now complete. In the coming weeks, we'll have guests on from those leagues to go into more detail, but we'll share some early thoughts on those in this episode and predict the winners. We'll also pick out some fantasy difference makers to look out for in the later rounds of drafts and who we think could have a big impact going forward. And we'll also have an NFL news recap with plenty going on over the past week as we take a look at it all through the lens of a fantasy football. Jack, let's begin with our TSL draft recaps then, and we can start with the South Sunday League to get some thoughts from yourself on your team, and I'll chime in with a prediction after. Your team is now complete. I think last time we spoke, we were around 8 rounds deep into the draft, I think.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about it? Any picks that you think are going to be game changers for you? I know we don't want to give anything away to your competition, so I won't ask about any trade block candidates to avoid tanking their value, but how are you grading your team now that the draft is finally done?
I'm pretty happy. I think there's always a little bit of reflection where you're like, oh, could I have done this or should I have targeted that? But on the whole, I think I did what I wanted to do. And I think, probably on our first ever podcast when we were talking about strategy and things in terms of sort of filling each sort of roster group or wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, kind of getting a bit of strength and a little bit of depth in each of them rather than sort of personally being too top heavy or particularly having a weak spot. So I think I managed to nail that in honesty. So I was happy. And then sort of, depth wise, again, I was trying, I kind of got myself into a little bit of a rhythm that kind of happened a couple, because I was picking sort of on the turn kind of, with the third overall pick, I was sort of picking every 6 picks or whatever it is. I kind of got in the habit of a slight vet, then a slight rookie, and kind of I found myself bouncing off those two, which to be honest, I just quite enjoyed. It kind of made my decision making a little bit easier because I was like, no, that's the way I'm going to do it. As I sort of say, probably the last 12 rounds or so, and it kind of made me feel a bit better. Maybe taking a few gambles. I went for my boy Bell for the Dolphins, Chris Bell, who again I think we spoke about on the rookies one that I've got quite high hopes that again if he comes back fit and everything, he might have a big not potentially season, but a big career ahead of him, fingers crossed. So I'd go for him, and then I'd maybe balance him, with someone, as I say, sort of a vet on the next pick. And it just made me feel a little bit better of actually going out and getting them. And there was a couple people, again, we were talking about getting sniped and people jumping up in front of you. And because I was doing that, it kind of made me think, actually, I'm going to go for someone 4 rounds earlier. Once I got towards the end, towards the latter stages, go for someone, maybe 3 or 4 rounds earlier than I might have done, just because of what I was doing in my own head and things. And I said, for me, it gave me that little bit of reassurance that no, this is my strategy. And as I said, I'm pretty happy of how it came out.
That elusive balance between experience and rookies that I did not find So I'm happy for you. I mentioned a couple of people there, but I was looking at your team and obviously Neighbours pick first. No surprise, they're very happy with that for you. Glad to see you got your boy Devon A-Chain. Yeah. Set up nicely at quarterback, tight end for the foreseeable future. Drake May, Harold Fannin Jr. The one interesting one was someone that I picked as well. You landed David Montgomery. I think that's a pretty savvy move just in terms of him stepping out and making himself that RB1 with the Texans.
Yeah, the running back is probably where I'm least satisfied. In honestly, wide receivers, like I said, Neighbours, Collins, Olave being your sort of headliners, Scary Terry coming in fourth. I was absolutely ecstatic to get him, to be honest. Where I did, because again, because of his age, he was always going to fall down the board somewhat. But he's someone I've I've had for years. I said I think I've been doing fantasy 6 years or so, and I've probably had him 4 out of those 6 years at least. And I didn't have him last year when he had the down year, so I'm hoping that kind of bringing him back in was good. But yeah, running back, I couldn't fall in love with too many picks. And I said Montgomery, I'm content with, but at the minute he's probably my RB2 until we sort of know exactly maybe what Tutun's going to be. And again, I don't know if he's a strong RB2. He's probably more of a flex type person that I'd like to be using. But I said Tutun might come in. That's just my own personal view that I'm not too high on him. I know lots of other people are. But I got Charbonnet, who's obviously on IR to start, but could add a bit of depth. Again, if he comes back fully fit, he could be number one in that room. And then I got Jalen Wright for who again Dolphins, just a bit of insurance for A-Chain in case anything happens. I think Wright showed a little bit last year that he could be up for a bigger workload. So not someone that's going to impact right away, but gives me a little bit of security blanket, I suppose. But yeah, other than that, I just couldn't get my hands. Every time I thought I was going to go for someone, they'd either go a few picks before, and there was just, it kept falling that there wasn't a fullback option. So that's probably the area I was least happy with. It's a May quarterback, great. I'm pretty content with Willis starting for this year. Whether or not he's a long-term play, we'll see. But for this year, I'm quite content with that. And then I went for Jacoby Brissett, who's obviously having his financial standoff, isn't he, at the moment with the Cardinals, which I think is quite commendable, really, because you wouldn't think he's got much of a, I don't know, strength of position to sort of really kind of be negotiating things, when you're sort of like your take. But I heard someone sort of say, well, listen, if he's going to be put out there to get his ass whooped week in, week out, he should be getting paid a fair amount of money, if they're looking at a tank sort of session or sort of, again, kind of putting him in harm's way, then they should be asking for it. So if he plays, he's one of those mid quarterbacks that can come in, get you 15 to 20 points most times, and you can be pretty happy as well. So as I said, overall, I was pretty happy about how it all fell. I did have to admit that I had an auto pick when I was at the Spurs game on Sunday, which I completely forgot to set up my queue and all the rest of it. But to be honest, it was one or two defensive players that I was, I'm fairly happy with as well. So overall, I was pretty happy.
I do like your pickup of Charbonnet. I think once he's back from injury, that could be a big boost down the stretch. Just if Jadarian Price isn't the guy, he may well be, don't know, but big role for Charbonnet coming back into it.
Yeah, that was my thinking.
Good stuff. I'm not sure it means too much, but I approve of your team. I think it's good. It's solid. Good luck to you.
Better than you telling me it's rubbish. I'll take it.
But looking at your league overall then, and this is a more general overlook because there's so much to talk about. We'll get into more with guests in future episodes. But I think DC 2356 has got a very intriguing wide receiver room. He's got Carnell Tate, McMillan and Concepcion. He's got a solid IDP group as well. CFC Bills has got Dart and Scatterboo, which is a dream start, but then he's also got Jonathan Taylor, Nakua, Devonta Smith, Tyler Warren, Kelsey, and Max Crosby. So that roster stands out to me. Baz 71 has got one hell of a running back room. Kenneth Walker, Gibbs, and Chase Brown. And then I was impressed with Dan's wide receiver room as well. It's strong, intriguing actually, because he's got a lot of youngsters in there, but he's got Cooper, Tyson, Lemon, Wilson, and JSN. And then I think another one was the Postman's running back room as well. Fascinating with Hampton, Price, Love, and others. So a lot of intriguing, interesting picks there. Dilesh looks very dangerous, I think, with his veterans-only squad. 27 and over, apparently. But Mahomes, Henry, Barkley, Adams, Evans. He's even got Stephon Diggs in there as well. But Jamar Chase, Laporta, and Andrews as well. He obviously had the auto pick click into gear as well with a string of defensive players on his bench. So that could come back to cost him. Factor in injury risks as well with the age of those players. But I think with that last point in mind, and apologies to those who I haven't mentioned, I could be here for ages chatting about it, going through each team, but I did change my mind a couple of times as I'm indecisive like that. But as we mentioned last week, I like what Katie has done. Singleton was a rookie I managed to add to my roster as well, and I'll talk about him in a bit more detail later. But she's got Bijan, Judkins, Egbuka, AJ Brown, Higgins, Bowers, and just many others that make her a really strong contender. It's a balanced lineup with players who I think they're all primed for big seasons. They're good options on the bench as well. I have her down to win your league, if I'm honest. I think she'll need Stroud to turn the clock back and a couple of others to show up. But going through the rosters, I just felt as though that was the most difficult one to pick out weak points. So Katie's team is my pick, followed by Dilesh, as it's sort of a now or never situation for him, and then CFC Bills in third. For me, you sit just outside of that three, but I think every chance, if things fall for you in the right place, I think you can exceed my expectations at least. But like I said, I'm not sure how much weight my opinion has, but you've got it anyway.
Yeah, no, I think we should make that perfectly clear to everyone when we're going through these. It's sort of, yeah, what we say is not gospel. It is, it's just, again, it is difficult because, like you said, every team has strengths and weaknesses and things. And it sounds so, again, we'll obviously get to what I've picked in the other leagues, but we've maybe done something quite similar, looking for that balance of team, sort of across the board with some depth, with some old and young. And again, that's probably what is going to stand out at this stage. But as we all know, week one injuries and everything else will throw everything into complete disrepute. So yeah, it's good to say. And I do, yeah, I think I mentioned Katie last week, and such in terms of just lots of very savvy pickups, lots of sensible sort of later round stuff to kind of bring some good players in and everything as well. So no, I can't disagree too much.
How's your trade block looking, by the way? Any notable names appeared there? Any surprise trade proposals? I guess this is sort of the next fascinating period of it all, along with who picks up who in waivers, I guess, isn't it?
No, yeah, there hasn't been too much activity across, even across our draft and everything. To be honest with you, I think we've been a little bit more. Everybody kind of has wanted to get their teams filled and focusing on themselves, really. So no, we haven't got hardly anything really up for grabs. I haven't particularly seen, I know there was one of the leagues that it felt like the whole first round got put on the trade block as soon as they could, sort of thing, and all the rest of it. Whilst Southerners seem a little bit more content to, no, we've got our teams and we'll go to battle with them.
Fair enough. Okay, so let's head over to the Midlands next. Obviously, the best part of the country. Now, some might say that I'm deluded. Some might say that I've got my draft strategy completely wrong. And if I'm being completely frank with you, Jack, they're probably right. Am I entirely happy with my team? No. I got beaten to the punch multiple times on priority targets who I thought would fall to me. So I was kind of content to sit rather than trade back into rounds, etc. Had a few alternatives in mind anyway, but I would say I'm relatively content with my team. It's absolutely a slow burner of a team. I wanted more balance, like I said earlier, with more immediate hitters, but the board just didn't fall that way for me. So I've put my faith in a lot of young talent who will hopefully develop at a decent pace, keep me in contention after this season. I will need injuries to be kind to me, as if I start losing some of the senior players, I'm going to be in all sorts of trouble. So fingers crossed. But we're here for a long time, not a good time, apparently, looking at my roster. So we'll see if I'm tanking come Thanksgiving. But what did you make of this draft and who have you got winning the Midlands and why is it me?
I wish I could just say, Samit Paul, let's go. No, mate, I think you've got to be pretty content. And as long as you're sort of, Neighbours was always your guy and you managed to get a few Scatterbo and a few people like that, you were content with. But as you sort of say, it's just difficult sometimes when the board doesn't fall your way. And you guys didn't do the 3-round reversal, did you?
No.
And if I'm right in thinking you picked fairly late in the first round, is that right?
Yeah, ninth I was.
Ninth, yeah. So again, that probably, and I think with all the other leagues and stuff, again, it does give you that opportunity to, you're not waiting for that second round. And I don't know, personally, I do feel as though it might have given you maybe one more big hitter, or certainly the chance to get ahead of quite a few people with another big pick and stuff. But I think you can be pretty content. It's a fun team. You've got plenty of good players there to watch. Lots of young, exciting players on. You got Lane and Concepcion as two young wide receivers, didn't you? Which is good. Mendoza could turn into, again, I think like we sort of mentioned, he could turn into a real baller. And you got Cousins there if you wanted to use him at the start and things. So, no, mate, I think you're good. It was, yeah, as you say, definitely a lot harder than I expected, sort of going through team. It was kind of one of those I mentioned to you where it's sort of, I was almost looking for my favorite players and who's got them and are they my winners and things like that. But no, I think for me, sort of, probably the third place team I would say would be team Luke 292. He's got Joe Burrow and Bo Nix, which I think is a nice quarterback pairing. And love his throwing targets of AJ Brown, T Higgins, Garrett Wilson, and Tucker Craft. That's a really nice core of passing targets. And then he's got Pearsall and Lemon in supporting roles. Again, really like that in terms of potentially quite high upside. Pearsall's kind of gone off the radar quite a bit this year and such, but again, going into last year, there was a lot of hype and things. So I like those. Hampton's a top pick, and then you've got Harvey and Krosky Merritt, who have the potential to take a notable leap, but maybe are slight gambles, but potentially. He's got Jonathan Brooks in the running back room that I mentioned I like as a pickup, and Jalen Wright that I mentioned for me. So he's got some intriguing backup pieces. So I liked it, what they did in the draft. I thought Jay Bento had a really good draft. He's got Cam Ward and Tyler Sharp as his. They're not sure things, but could be great long-term pickups if they do continue to progress. Kenneth Walker, A-Chain, Javonte Williams is a really nice trio of running backs, and he's got quite a lot of depth there. So he's got Tracy Dobbins, even Bigsby, and then he's got Charbonnet on his IR. So really loaded at running back, and would be someone I'm sure people will be targeting with trade offers. Again, if you are running back light, he seems to have a lot of them. So that's maybe the guy to go to see what he might want to hang you over a barrel for. But then Chase headlines probably the whole team, and complimenting him with Olave, Fannin and Pitts is a fun target room. So Pittman, Naylor, Shaheed, likely. They're all in, again, they should all be people that can step in when needed as well. So really strong team, I think, for Jay Bento. But in the end, I went for Wild Guns, Shannon Sheldon, who I think is our old mate Marcos. I don't know.
Indeed, yep.
It is, yeah. This isn't just showing him love because of how much love he shows us and stuff. And it was really tricky to beat out that last team. But I think he just has. He's got Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts. To me, that's the best quarterback tandem in the league. Genty and Barkley is such a nice running back 1 and 2. Both were probably top 5 predictions for me coming in this year. Obviously, I think I had Barkley number 1 over. Tootin, I mentioned I have reservations about, but not really as sort of a flex or sort of cover option, which he can then use him with, which is good. Devontae Smith, we spoke about as having exciting potential for this year, and pairing him with Ibuka, who again I think could have a big year. That's an exciting duo with plenty of years left in them. And then Scary Terry, he has sort of as his next support wide receiver 3. But then he's got Godwin and Wan'Dale Robinson, who could be really impactful as well. Again, we know we're all expecting a lot from Tate, but those two could easily be, wide receiver 1s on both of their teams as well. So, and then at tight end, he's got a player that I've long advocated for in Gunnar Helm. Who I was, I think people are a little bit dismantled by my not lack of knowledge on Gunnar Helm, but he's got him, but supplemented him with Kenyon Sadiq as well. So I think ultimately that was the squad that I'm the biggest fan of. I just think there's just real balance across it all, with top 5 players, certainly at quarterback, certainly at running back, potential top, a couple top 10 at wide receiver as well. I just think, just again, when I went for it all, squad, I think that was the team I ultimately think I could see winning potentially year 1, but certainly being really strong to move forward with as well.
That has not made me feel any better. So
that's what you're up against.
Dreading year 1. But no, you're right. I think I've got to echo those sentiments. Those were the kind of teams that stood out to me as it was all unfolding. You mentioned some of the players that I sort of got sniped on. There were a couple that I really wanted. So it's
the team that could have been. It could have been. Yeah,
exactly. But we are where we are. I've got faith in my youngsters. Let's go. We can do it. Right. So next up is the North League. And I found this one incredibly difficult to call. I think, as we mentioned in our previous pods, these guys were very active in trading throughout the draft. And there's a lot of fantasy football experience in this league, it seems. I think everyone's got strong parts to their roster. The talent is evenly spread out. And I think everyone has got somewhat of a weak area that they just have to take on the chin. But J Thorpe 95 looks like a contender with May, Jonathan Taylor, Devon Achan, T-Mac, Higgins, Pittman, Pitts and Kraft. I think Stevie Teeth is also in that category. He's got Dart, Hampton, Genty, Price, Evans, Diggs, Olave, Warren and Kelsey.
I've got to just say, I think I might be rooting for Stevie Teeth. He was the slow drafter in the cinema, kind of just checking it. Oh, yeah, sorry. Here I go. And I love that he's come out with a strong roster. So he might be a bit of a personal favourite of mine, I think.
Gonna say that might be the strategy moving forward. Just have
Yeah.
a life and just pick when you
Yeah.
can. But yeah, he's come out of it really well. I do like his team. I also like what Durham Pink Panthers has done, building his roster with Gibbs, Brown, Tate, Lemon, Adams, Lamb, Andrews, and Will Anderson. I think that's a good blend. But my vote for winner of the North is going to be ACDC. Hertz, Cook, CMC, Nakua, Pickens, Schultz, Henry, Aaron Jones with a bit more experience there, and Stafford as well, Roquan Smith. And sort of what echo the thoughts that you just mentioned with the last league. He's got Godwin, Alec Pierce, and a couple of others of really good pieces in there as well to sort of come in and do a job. So I think he's assembled a roster built to win now. So I'm going to go with him as my projected winner of the North. So it's Jay Thorpe and Durham Pink Panthers behind ACDC for me. And yeah, just to echo what you mentioned earlier, just a PSA to everyone in the South and North. I know nothing, so don't take it personally or come for me. I'm just here having a good time doing a pod with my mates. I hope you all have really successful seasons. But yeah, those teams are the ones that stood out for me anyway.
Yeah, no, they sound really, really strong. And like you said, probably coming back to that sort of the balance, isn't it? And sort of, win now, but also have those youth and sort of young players that are still climbing that you maybe got to pick at a slightly different stage and things. So yeah, just having a quick look at that depth there, I think, I can definitely see why you went for them.
Okay, so we're back to you now then, Jack, with our last two leagues. If we kick things off with the UK SL1 League first, who stood out for you in this one? And if you had to put your money on a winner, who are you picking?
Yeah, cool. So again, loads of teams that I really liked. I think Team Waldo 1985 stood out initially. Josh Allen, he just makes every team a contender, but really liked him getting paired with Bo Nix. I think that's a really good pairing that has real high potential. The tight end combo of Loveland and Kincaid really jumped out to me as being really strong too. And then he's had Collins and Flowers, who are still solid top 20 wide receivers, and Brian Thomas Jr., who could have a bounce back year that so many are desperate for him too. So like the wide receiver room, he's got Xavier Worthy on the bench, who could have a bigger year obviously than expected too, depending on obviously what happens with Rice and such. But the running back room, not quite as strong. RJ Harvey and Scadaboo, lots of obviously potential there. I think fun players in their own rights, but probably why I didn't quite go for them as being the strongest team in my mind. The Pac-Man, this is a much more evenly structured team, but I just looked like I like what they have really. So quarterbacks, Stafford, who, still elite, and then Murray, who I've mentioned previously, I could see being quite a big score candidate, obviously in his new surroundings. He's got Brissett and Rogers as sort of there ready to step up if someone like Murray does have a bit of a stinker year or there's an injury or anything like that. And he got Will Howard, the Steelers rookie from last year, as a longer term punt. So gone quite in at the quarterback, got quite a deep room there, but I did like what he came out with. Running backs is a bit of an elderly care home for him with McCaffrey. He's got McCaffrey, Kenneth Walker. That's a really nice 1-2 punch. But then he's got the old boys, sort of Stevenson, Aaron Jones. But he's got Tyler Algier as well as a stable option. Again, everyone's sort of presuming he's going to be RB2 straight off the bat, which you'd expect him to. But again, if there is an injury or maybe Love doesn't quite hit it as everyone expects, he could have a bigger role than we think. But his wide receivers, CeeDee Lamb and Waddle. Again, I think a bit like this what I said about the quarterbacks and sort of the running back 1 and 2. It's just a lovely combo. And, certainly they're players in their prime with some big one-off game potential off the bench with sort of Romeo Dobbs and Shaheed on the bench as well. And then Fannin brings the average age down quite a lot at tight end, but he has got Kittle on his IR if he wants to wrap that back up over to Faye when he's back fit and everything. So probably not got too many miles in its legs, this team, but I for a sprint to this year's title, I thought that's a roster that could definitely do it. But ultimately I went for Team All Stats. That was who I felt had the strongest chance probably for this year and potentially moving forward as well, because Jackson Dart and Sam Darnold, two middle of the quarterbacks, they came 14th and 13th last season, but there's not a weak link there. Both again should be starters for many years to come, and certainly two sort of 15-point plus scorers every week with Dart potentially having a really higher ceiling. Running backs, was a little uninspiring, to sort of say the least. You know, the kind of Tyler Warren, Pollard, who's the Bears, Monangai, and then he's got sort of Braylon Allen. But you know, Pollard and Warren again probably fit in the middle of the pack of the running back region. So again, he's not invested there, but the wide receiver, Puka, JSN, Ted McMillan. I mean, God damn, that is again. I was sort of looking, as soon as I saw that, I was like, how do you not have them as the potential winner with that trio? You know, so it looked like he grabbed JSN and then he moved back up to get Puka a few picks later, which obviously, you know, really brave move. I couldn't actually find the trade to see exactly what he did for it. I don't know. Yeah, again, I just couldn't find that, but brave move, and I think that's completely paid off. As I said, you end up with that trio, and as I said, with everything else being decent without sort of amazing, I just think that as a trio is potentially title winning.
Can't argue with that. My brain was frazzled by this point. I don't know about you, looking all over these teams, but yeah, I think you made a strong case, and looking at that roster certainly is one of them. One person I wanted to mention, he's one of the players that I wanted actually, but he went, I don't know how early he went in mine, but it felt quite early. But Schlesinger, the Browns linebacker.
Oh yeah.
Defensive player of the year, rookie last year. He looks tackle machine. I think he's just on a trajectory of just being a solid IDP. So I think that's another savvy move from him as well.
Yeah. So again, all stats has got him lying in wait on his roster as well. And yeah, he does seem as though he was the sort of one of the hot picks, wasn't it? Really, I think Will Anderson Jr., obviously Myles Garrett, people like me that were kind of going for the old reliable, but Carson definitely seemed the sort of the younger pick that everybody wanted.
And then finally, off we pop to the UK SL2 League to wrap things up. Who nailed the draft here, in your opinion, and is in turn on course to be crowned winner of this league?
So here, I really liked Benjamin Monk. I love the long-term prospects of his team. You know, I think they could contend right off the bat too if things go their way. He's got Daniels as his number one quarterback, potential, and CJ Stroud, who I think, as you allude to, is a gamble, but I think it's one worth taking. He's got Hampton and Hall, who two running backs who should get huge workloads. I think Hall, his stock has probably risen since our draft started, because I think it was after that he signed his contract and things. But kind of obviously, yeah, family being their cowbell horse, running back. Sorry. So yeah, I think got those two who again should have workloads. But then really cleverly, he's taken both of their understudies. So he's got Braylon Allen of the Jets and then Keaton Mitchell, who presumably moves ahead of Vidal as running back 2 at the Chargers. So quite like that. I thought that was just something that stood out to me as quite clever pickups, that again, you're kind of giving yourself that again, safety blanket, as it were. The wide receiver does like current star power though. So he's got Tate, who everyone's obviously excited by, but sort of Addison, Wandale Robinson, but then Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston stand out amongst, you know, the other wide receivers. I think he's actually got the whole Titans wide receiver room, because he's actually got Alec Ayamano as well. So, but he didn't get Cam Ward. So I was like, he must be a Titans fan or something, I'm guessing, because I think he has got, the top 3 wide receivers, but no Cam Ward. So I was like, oh no, must have just got sniped or something. But yeah, wide receiver room was the sort of failing part there. But he does have Brock Bowers, which is obviously almost as good as any of the elite wide receivers. So just, I liked, there's a few clever things there that I like from Benjamin. Nib high football. So he's got some old boys at quarterback with Goff and Rogers, with Geno Smith in backup. Probably isn't the headline you're looking for, but it did allow his team to be strong really everywhere else. So he managed to get Genty and Love as a pair. So that's obviously pretty much as exciting as you can get when it comes to sort of long-term potential. We obviously need to see it, but amazing to kind of get them both together. And then at wide receiver, they just have, they just pick loads of players that are amongst the very best in their prime. So Jefferson, AJ Brown, Olave, and then they've got Devontae Adams too. So yes, please. And Mike Evans on the bench, and he's got Chris Bell as well. So yeah, just looking for it. Just the wide receiver room probably, really sort of jumped him up on my rankings. It's got Pitts in there with Kenyon Sadiq on support as well at tight end. So yeah, really like what they did. But here I went for Team King Ollie the First, who, I just, again, looking through all the teams, again, to echo what Samit said, we will kind of go through every team at some point once we've got guests from the particular league, and we can pick out a few things from each league. But from this one, looking over it, I think King Ollie first was my favourite, with Prescott and Mayfield as two absolute slingers as the quarterback position, with Bryce Young's quite a nice third wheel. JSN, Scary Terry is a pairing I really like. Xavier Worthy, Cortland Sutherland, sort of quite high upside backups. But running backs, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, the previous team obviously had the young bulls, but with all the potential, but he's gone for two of the most proven performers you can, with Montgomery, who should be a safe play as well. So, and then tight end, he got McBride, the best tight end in the league and runaway fantasy leader that everyone else is trying to catch. So I think he really nailed the draft with high short-term potential. But yeah, also some legs there. So King Ollie the first is my prediction for the UKSL 2.
It's a good shout. I think casting mine back to our previous pod when we were sort of discussing this after the early rounds, I think King Ollie stood out at that stage as well. So for him to sort of push on and get your vote is impressive. So fair play to him. But yeah, like I said, looking at the roster right now, it's pretty damn good. So can't argue with your pick on that one either. So those are our predictions for our league winners this year. We will keep a note of it all and tally it up at the end of the season to see just how badly wrong we got the whole thing. But yeah,
but I do feel like we should poll everyone in the competition, so it's not just us held to account. It's sort of,
that's true.
You kind of get everybody to sort of see who they think. So
right, so that's the TSL league predictions covered. Next up, we are delving into our respective drafts and picking out some late round difference makers who could potentially put you over the top and turn into league winners. We will take it in turns to roll through our favourite picks from round 12 to 23 in the drafts that we were involved in. And it will no doubt be music to the ears of the owners who have these players, and hopefully some decent advice for anyone listening who has yet to have their draft. So, Jack, do you want to kick us off here and give me your favourite pick from round 12 of the South League?
Yeah, so we're doing sort of 12 to 23, aren't we? Which is obviously where our draft sort of ended. And we'll rotate, obviously, on those. So, yeah, so round 12, Josh Downs was my pick here, looking through everybody that went off in that round. He's 24. This sort of round, I think I like the pick, as he's a player with a lot of potential to have his involvement increase a lot. I think Pittman's moved on, and whilst obviously Warren and Peace are obvious target, I thought Downs could really become a solid performer for them. So I really like that as a pickup, as someone who, 24, still got a lot of football ahead of them. And as I say, his role should only grow. So yeah, Josh Downs was my favourite pick from round 12.
I'm actually going with my own pick here in round 13 of the Midlands. And I went with Nicholas Singleton, running back for the Tennessee Titans. Now, by many accounts, he was a standout talent at Penn State, but it was injury that contributed to him falling down the real life draft. I honestly don't think much of Pollard or Spears. So if you combine that with Singleton's touted talent, I think that's a serious sort of lack of long-term competition for him if he can make a positive impression, both with his preseason work and then if he can make a fast start when the season gets underway, if he's involved, of course. But I can see him being a difference maker. So grab him if he's around in the later rounds. I think there's a hell of a lot of upside with him. So yeah, he was my pick from round 13.
Yeah, he went one round later than us, early in the 14th round. But yeah, completely echo that. As again, if you're getting someone with that long-term potential, that's really good. But I didn't go for him in my round 14. I went for Woody Marks, who we had quite a lot of defensive players go in our 14th round, including both Styles and Reese. But I drafted Montgomery myself, but there's just a big inclination to me that Marks could be a lead running back sooner, sort of rather than later. I think he'll get more of the targets in the air. I think he'll be more of a catching running back, certainly. But I kind of thought he might have a little bit more momentum than he did coming off last season. I thought he sort of, not that he came from nowhere, but I thought he had a really solid year and showed some real glimpses and such. But yeah, again, he's obviously dropped down fairly low and sort of, again, people like Singleton and stuff being picked ahead of him. He was kind of getting picked in our round. We had Rodriguez, the backup running back at Jacksonville, and Tracy, who's obviously second to Scatterbo in New York, and Mark's there. And out of those, I fancy Marks is probably the most likely to kind of get running back one reps this year, more so than the others.
As someone who also owns Montgomery in my league, I'm hoping that Woody Marks doesn't prove to be the pick of this round. But okay, so from round 15 of the Midlands draft, it's me again with Aaron Rodgers. No, I'm not. That definitely wasn't the one. But 49ers rookie DeJean Stribling, I think there's one to watch. He wasn't my pick, but I thought that was an interesting pick at this stage. As I mentioned earlier, Zach Charbonnet, I think he comes back from injury, can really help teams down the stretch. But I have to go with someone that we clearly disrespected last week. You've mentioned him already, and that is Titans tight end Gunnar Helm. Marcos took him in this round, and having looked into it more since our last pod, that could really prove to be a steal, given he's got a clear path as a starter, and he looks a real talent. So apologies may well be in order for Gunnar at the end of the season. I went all Conor McGregor on him with you, with the whole who the F is this guy, but I think we might have to put some respect on his name, Jack, before it's too late.
I'm gonna have to get a jersey, aren't I? I feel like I've wedded myself to Gunnar Helm for the whole season stuff. But no, it was one of those. I think I messaged you after I spotted it, or after we did the pod, and a few people flagged it. It was like, no, this lad could potentially be a really big player for in the season. So no, fair play. Yeah, fair play. So that was in round 15, did you say that you went?
15.
Yeah. No, fair. He went in 15th round actually for us as well. Just having a look here. Because how high, when I flagged him, it was like 9th, wasn't it? I think that he went, is why he stood out to me. I think when I saw him, I can't remember what league it was in, but I'm sure it was in the 9th round of things. And that's probably what took me aback, more so than the name that I'd never seen before. But Gunnar Helm, you're my boy. Come on. So I'm on round 16 now, aren't I? So again, you kind of get to the stage now where, as you sort of say, it's a real who's who of going. You're getting some vets, you're getting some defensive players, you're getting some rookies, and everything that are sort of moving now. But Tank Dell was selected in the 16th, and that stood out to me a little bit. I think he had such a promising career ahead of him, didn't he? Until these injuries, he was such a big reason why CG Stroud was so hyped, because he was on the end of all those deep balls and things. So injuries obviously derailed that, but I think these are the sort of rounds where you can sort of take those gambles. I don't know what you think, but for me, I think he's worth a punt.
100% agree with you. I was hoping you were going to say him, because I was just looking through. Injury was just horrible, wasn't it? It was such a serious and bad one. It's taken a long time to rehab and get back to it. But yeah, fingers crossed if he can recover, get back into the swing of things, and give Stroud another target. I'll be very excited to see him and Nico Collins' impact as well with that. But yeah, Tank Dell's one to watch as well. And so in round 17 of the Midlands, and I swear I'm not doing this as a wind-up, but my pick did come into consideration with Commanders running back Katron Allen. Okay. I just think he's got a bit of work to do with Krosky Merritt and Rashad White in front of him. So there's a bit, he's got to work his way up the depth chart. But he is another prospect I think can make a breakthrough on a team that needs fresh blood and new threats. But I actually went with Go Johnny Go's selection here as Zachariah Branch, the rookie Falcons wide receiver. 79th overall pick. He looks like an obvious talented young player, but beyond Drake London, I'm just wondering, I think there's such an open competition to emerge as Penix Jr.'s second favoured target. So I went with Branch. I think he's got a lot of upside to him.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think it's, as you sort of say, you're looking at opportunities sometimes more than the player, and you're kind of like, who's going to get those chances and such, because as you sort of say, Falcons, it's not loaded over there. So really like that as a shout for sure. I went a real opposite way, round 18, kind of stealing from your joke. I actually went for Aaron Rodgers in this. Yes. But the only rationale behind it and what my thinking was, again, there wasn't loads of players that particularly jumped off to me in this round. As I sort of say, there was quite a few defensive, Matt Jones, again, he's not going to be a starting quarterback. And as sort of say, there's maybe 7 or 8 defensive players that went and such. So, and again, I didn't particularly want to go down the defensive route, but what I like about Rodgers is someone's got to do it. So someone's got to pick him up. Again, you get an injury or, something happens in your quarterback room or something, you've got to have a fullback option. And in deep leagues like ours, pretty much every starting quarterback is going to be off the table. As I was saying, people like Mac Jones are going at a civil level, who obviously going to be rooted to the bench for most of the season. So I just quite like the idea of you're going for short-term cover. He's not going to be elite scorer, but if he's your third quarterback, I think you're happy with what you're getting in this round. If you've got someone who is legitimately going to be able to come into your team, give you a week or two at 15 points plus at quarterback, I think you're pretty happy. So I know you joked about him earlier and all the rest of it, and it's definitely a short-term move, but actually it's easy to say no. It's easy to go, oh, I don't want Rodgers. So it's actually harder, I think, to be like, you know what? That's just a sensible play. So that's why I went for that one.
So glad you said that. You've made me feel a lot better about that pick.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so there were a few options in round 19 in the Midlands that I could have picked. Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles came off the board here. Drew Allard went in this round as well. And just talking about Rodgers, I don't know whether he could possibly be a long-term answer for the Steelers, but I actually went with Jared Verse. If you're looking to leave your IDP till late and he's still knocking around, I just think it's a really smart pickup. He's still only 25. He's played all 17 games in the last 2 seasons consecutively. And if there's one thing I've learned from listening to all these NFL pods over the years, availability is the best ability. So you add to that he scored at a good clip as well in both of those seasons. I would be more than happy with a pillar like Verse filling that IDP slot later if he's still gone undrafted.
Definitely love that. Yeah, I think he is one of the defensive players that is worth mentioning. I think he's been top 5 in both the seasons he's been in the league, hasn't he? And a hell of a fun player to watch. He's got that dog mentality and all the rest of it. And like you said, I think he's probably not at the very top of the list. We're going with some of the other names. So if you can get him here now, I would still lean to him, certainly over sort of the rookies that are a few years younger. But yeah, there's absolutely no guarantee that they're going to get one season in the top 5, let alone sort of, like I said, him coming in with 2 straight off the bat. So, well worth a shout, which, really good. As I said, I kind of left the defensive players, again, because I'm a little bit newer to it, probably, and all the rest of it. But once you've got players like that you can easily look into and say, the stats are there for you to feel confident, you've got to put big value into it because, like we said, unlike kickers and things like that, these guys are week winners for you. So good shout on that front. I stayed with the Rams actually at number 20. So they spent their second round pick on a tight end this year, which after going obviously for their controversial quarterback in the first, they went for Max Clare, which I don't know if it is Claire or Max Clara, but they this obviously just made me feel that they must see enormous sort of potential in him. They have a really crowded tight end room, and I quite enjoy Terrence Ferguson, their sort of rookie from last year, but I like this pickup, and again, I think this is sort of where I'm putting value in sort of the organization and their selection. I think long term, that could sort of really pay off. And interestingly, in our league, he was sort of the first of the Rams tight ends off the board ahead of Ferguson and Parkinson. They have Higbee on the books as well. So again, maybe not a day one or sort of week one big impact maker and stuff, but I just, again, looking into him and believing in the Rams and again, kind of how they draft and everything like that, I really like that as a pickup by the Postman.
So getting into the real depths of it all now, but in round 21, Jalen Milroe went here. And I know he's unlikely to play given Sam Darnold is still the top dog for the Seahawks, but I just remember the hype around this guy when he first came into the league. It seems a shame that he's sort of stuck in that situation, but I thought that was a really clever pickup from Go Johnny to Go again. A.D. Mitchell, Pat Frymouth, and Isaiah Pacheco were on my radar, but I've actually gone with Justin Jolie, the rookie Broncos tight end. He's got Evan Ingram in front of him in the depth chart, but he's had 2 pretty quiet seasons now, so I think the opportunity is there for Jolie to make a breakthrough. I think he looks like a real talent, and I think that's a really savvy pickup from Marcos late in the draft.
Yeah, that stood out to me in the next round as well. Like you sort of said, again, just looking at depth charts and potential opportunities and such. Yeah, I think that could be good. And as you sort of said, with tight ends, quite often these players do kind of come out of nowhere a little bit, or sort of, kind of a little bit under the radar, and all of a sudden they have big careers and long careers as well. So that's a great show. I'm into round 22, my final round here. So I was going to go for Cade Klubnik, who's the rookie quarterback that the Jets selected in the fourth, but he probably doesn't have too much long-term value. But I just, again, on a podcast and so I was reading, I just saw that there were some pretty positive reports about him, that he could win the backup job. And Geno Smith, to me, just has one of those feels and potential career arcs now that he might be cooked, and he could be, again, Jets start slow, he's under pressure, the fans want something to cling to, the coach needs something to cling to, and maybe they bring in, as I say, Cade Klubnik to come in and take his role. So I quite like that as a potential sort of, bit of a gamble pick, as it were. But in the end, I actually went for Chris Brazzell, the rookie wide receiver that the Panthers selected. I just think he's a deep ball threat. All the sort of reports are that's his sort of specialty, and probably that he's going to be the best in the Panthers room from day one. You'd think he'd go in there as wide receiver 4, but again, just thinking about there's scope there to feature a lot more in this room. Certainly, longer term, but potentially shorter term as well, which I imagine is why Walden Farms picked him. And I just think, actually, as one of your last picks, that's the sort of thing I like to do. Is you're going for someone who, again, you may never put them in your starting lineup. They may give you no value, but there is potential and there is something to watch for, and get your eyes on that team and kind of see what's going on and things. So yeah, in the end, I went for Chris Brazzell, the rookie wide receiver.
Gunnar Helm vibes there for a second if you're going to go with Klubnik. So I was like, I don't know anything about him, so don't do this to me again. No, that's a good shout. And then to wrap this segment up, a couple of rookie defensive players went here with Ruben Bain and David Bailey in the Midlands. And I'll probably go with the latter to have the bigger fantasy impact moving forward. Just as a side note, I randomly took Joe Mixon with my last pick. Now, I know it's unclear at this stage if he's even ever going to play in the NFL again after he missed all of last season. But I just think it's easy to forget just how good he was prior to that. He had a run of over 200 points scored over multiple seasons.
Yeah.
And I just think if a team has a big injury crisis or whatever the case is and needs somebody, okay, if Mixon is okay physically, which again, I appreciate is very much in the air, but I just think that's a fascinating one. We've seen Najee Harris and Nick Chubb paired with the Packers over the last 24 hours. So I'm kind of thinking in the similar mold to them. But to be on the safer side, I went with Bailey as my final answer. But interested to hear your thoughts on Mixon.
Yeah, again, like you said, Mixon I've had him a few years, and he was a stalwart, wasn't he? As sort of one of the running backs that you were either winning you weeks or costing you weeks if he was on the opposition. So I do get that. I do just think once they hit an injury run, they do seem to really sort of tail off. I'm sort of thinking sort of Dalvin Cooks and, even like Bradley Chubb, again, I think it's one of those positions, that explosivity, and yeah, I don't know. I think it's been such a long break for him. I don't know if he's really ever going to have an impact. I could see him maybe getting certainly back into the league and getting on a roster, and he might kind of pick up some snaps and things, but I think his time may be done. But again, depending on what your roster's done, again, if you're like yours and you've got your school bus, maybe you get a vet in there just in case it's sort of, again, just to mix it up and things. So no, I do quite like that. I think in our league, the one in the final round probably stood out to me was Beck, the quarterback at Arizona, and probably just because of the Brissett sort of news and sort of, the conversation about whether or not they're actually going to, pay him and get him on the field. Because if they don't, then Carson Beck, the rookie, could have a real shout. I think they've got who's the guy that always had the mustache, played for the Colts,
Minshew.
Yeah. I think he's on the roster as well. But again, he's not really someone that you're particularly invested in. And it's kind of, again, if you're sort of tanking, maybe Carson Beck's the guy you go, let's give him a year, let's see what he's about, sort of territory. So I quite like that as a pickup as well. So yeah, again, you kind of got to look at your own sort of rosters. As I sort of say, I do hold my hands up that I had the bit of auto pick going on for my final round, so I've got absolutely nobody to sort of highlight or sort of kind of shout about, really. Probably the only one that I didn't think sort of we did mention, and again we probably will once we kind of really look into, but Jacoby Lane I got fairly late. Obviously the Ravens new wide receiver who again we sort of spoke about that they hadn't really selected a tall wide receiver for decades, and he's 6'4" and potentially could offer them something a little bit different. And then Bernard, the sort of wide receiver who went to the Steelers as well. Again, just sort of off the back of a podcast I listened to, got some pretty good praise and potential there and things like that. So you've got to look at what you need and obviously what you're going for. But there are real weapons out there, and it's kind of, again, you've got to stay. Obviously, the first 10 rounds in particular, everyone's absolutely buzzing and you're frothing at the mouth to kind of get all the star names and kind of really chomping at the bit. But you got to stay engaged to the end because, probably the people that will go on to win these leagues this year and beyond are the ones that did that.
I'm right there with you with Lane. I also picked him up. Very hopeful that he'll have a big impact with the Ravens. And yeah, just to go back to Beck, I think I was in a similar situation towards the back end of my draft, just looking at some of the rookies. Ty Simpson was one that I wanted to get, but obviously he went a lot earlier. But there was Beck, there was Neusmeyer, and just a couple of others floating around towards the end. I'm fascinated by Beck, right? Because with the whole, like I said, with the Brissett stuff going on, that opens up a potential opportunity for him at some point to see what he can do.
They could go all in on him, couldn't they? They could literally just be like, you know what, Brissett, like, thank you. But no, we're just, again, that's not what we're about this year. And we want to, I don't know, whatever, save the money or whatnot. And they might go, we quite like what this kid's showing and we're going to give him the keys. So again, that would end up a mega coup if it did. Just going to say he will never be seen in the league. And someone that everyone will forget existed this time next year.
Oh dear. Right, so it's been a busy week in the NFL, despite it being deep into the off-season, and we're going to run through some of the news that caught our eye over the past 7 days and play a little game of yes or no. So let's start with Rashee Rice. He is currently serving 30 days in jail after violating his probation due to testing positive for marijuana, and he will subsequently miss OTAs and minicamp as a result. It also came out that he'll be ruled out for 2 months after having cleanup surgery on his knee. So an injury to keep an eye on to see when he recovers and whether or not he's a full go for the start of the season. But more question marks over his character with his jail time, Jack. I feel a bit sorry for those who just selected him, to be honest. I think I saw some put him on the trade block once the draft concluded, but there is real confidence that if Rice can get on the field, he'll be a really dangerous weapon for Mahomes with his speed, and we've seen how dangerous he can be. But with these ongoing issues with him, yes or no, is he a dynasty liability at the minute until he can prove he can sort this stuff out and lock in on football?
Yes. I mean, how would you say no at this point? He's so frustrating, isn't he? He's a great player, but he's not young enough where you think this is just a bit of growing up to do and things. And I traded for him. I actually traded Jefferson for him in a redraft league last year, which I think I remember sharing with you, and you were a bit like, oh, it's quite a ballsy move and whatnot. And it paid off massively. Like Rice, getting it through that period, completely outscored Jefferson and all the rest of it. And like you said, he's done well, but it's just issue after issue. And I just think Roger Goodell must be, absolutely frothing. You've got Brian Flores, obviously, with his lawsuit going on that Roger Goodell is most concerned with. And then in the background, feels like every sort of article is a police news story with an NFL player and all the rest of it. So, we're feeling hot and a little bit uncomfortable in at the minute. I can only imagine what Roger Goodell's feeling this week.
It's so true. I believe Rice is in a contract year as well, isn't he? So it's a big season for him, and just for this to happen is just crazy.
Mental. I think someone said in our WhatsApp group, didn't they? They were just like, it does seem to happen to NFL players more than any sport. Like, I'm trying to think, NBA, you get a few crazy cats in that as well, I suppose, don't you? But certainly compared to like over here and in the UK and things, again, imagine Premier League player was just, again, we've got a few wrong uns and all the rest of it, but people like out in jail for 30 days, it would just be like mental, especially when they are, who's Rashee Rice equivalent to? I don't know, like I'm trying to think, like a Semenyo or something. I don't know, like a really good, like a big name, isn't it? So madness.
Crazy. Elsewhere, after confirming his return to the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers has confirmed that this will be his last season. He did follow that statement at a press conference with a massive grin, which suggested it's not as quite as cut and dry as that. But despite moaning about him and his off-season nonsense, I did end up picking him in my draft, as I said, as I needed what I considered a safer pair of hands for a season until Mendoza is fully in the door with the Raiders. He has got Michael Pittman there now as well as DK Metcalf. He's got rookie Jeremy Bernard as a new target. Pat Frymuth is still there. Athletically, Rodgers is obviously a million miles off it. But yes or no, and I think you mentioned this earlier, so I know your answer, but is he still capable of helping fantasy owners win some matchups this year?
Yes, yeah. Again, I think he's not going to challenge the top 15. But like I said, he's a pretty reliable 15-point to 18-point scorer week in, week out, and that's enough to win you games.
Meanwhile, Browns coach Todd Monken praised Shedeur Sanders this week, insisting that he has come a long way. That follows earlier reporting earlier in the offseason that Deshaun Watson was trending towards winning the starting QB role for the Browns. Yes or no, Watson will be starting for the Browns week 1? And then how does that benefit or hinder the likes of Fannin Jr., Boston, and Concepcion?
I think it'll be Watson who starts. It won't be Sanders, who's going to be the starting quarterback. I think Sanders probably should have the starting job, but it just feels like they're going to flog that horse one more time with Watson. That's just, again, from the reports that I've seen and the sort of news that sort of has been out there. It's rubbish. Like, it's one of those, like, he was a player way back when, then he was a creep, and now he's not a player. Like, I don't know, he's injured. When he's been on the field, he's never lit it up. And I know he hasn't had lots of weapons or much of an offensive line. And actually, the Browns roster every quarterback should look better because they've actually had a good couple of drafts now. So they do have that in their favor. But yeah, I don't know with Watson again. There's always a bit of bias when they're you know who they are, sort of thing. So I think it should be Sanders, but I would choose Sanders, but I think it'll be Watson.
I agree with you. I think just the length of the absence and how bad he was when he was on the field for the Browns. Like you said, it's been years since we saw that version of Watson with the Texans now. Is he even capable of getting back to that?
But like, the Browns are going to, like, again, I don't know loads of Browns fans or anything like that, but like, do any of them even want him playing? Like, It's one of those weird, like, sometimes these teams and things, they just do stuff where you're like, just take the easy win that is staring you in the face. Like Watson, I think, has he got one more year left on this ridiculous contract? Or so, he's nearing the end of it, whatever it is. And it's just like, just suck it up, get a rookie out there or whatever it is. Sanders, who, again, he wasn't brilliant or anything like that, but he was okay. Build on that, kind of give someone for the team or the fans to get behind. That's the stuff that frustrates you as a fan, when you're just like, we don't want this. Like, stop giving us what we don't want. When it's sort of like, especially when it's not working. If it's working, the coaches and the teams are all in their right to say, we know better than you. Shut up, give us your money. And suck it up. But when it's not working and it sucks, just like, come on.
By the way, cue Dylan Gabriel getting the starter role and this question being worth nothing. Raiders head coach Clint Kubiak said that Fernando Mendoza has been as advertised. I'm assuming that's meant to be a positive thing and a compliment to the rookie quarterback. But Kirk Cousins is there to help that process of him settling into the league. Yes or no, will Mendoza be the Raiders' starting quarterback in week 1? And I'll have a follow-up question depending on your answer.
I'd say no. I think no. I just think what happened to Kirk at the Falcons, and with that sort of rug being pulled under his feet and things, I just, he's renowned as one of the best negotiators in the history of NFL. I think, in terms of the bags that he's got and the money he's earned and all the rest of it. And I just think he would have been so adamant on the terms of any agreement, ensuring that he sees the field, that even if it's just for the month or so, I think it's got to be his job to lose, even if Mendoza is clearly superior than him and all the rest of it. I just think if they're both fit, like, again, just in my head, if I'm Kirk Cousins, because he could have gone to other places and been a starter. He knew that they had the number 1 pick. He knew what that's going to look like. And yeah, I just think, again, from watching that program we quite like, the quarterback series, he is a competitor, and he clearly does still believe in himself and trust in his skills. So no, I think Kirk will get the job, but it could all come to an end for him quite quickly.
Because that was my follow-up question. So if it is Cousins, over or under 6 weeks until Mendoza comes in to replace him? Because I agree with you. I think it will be Cousins to start and then Mendoza comes in. I'm guessing around 4 weeks into it, because I just think it's easier for the Raiders to do it that way round than risking putting Mendoza in too early and then having to pull him out instead. So I think that works out the better way of putting Cousins in first. But yeah, over or under 6 weeks.
I don't know if they've got any buys or anything like that, but I think I would go. Sounds a lot, doesn't it? 6. I think initially I was like, he'd probably get till Thanksgiving, which would probably be over. But again, like you said, there's so much excitement around it. And especially if, like you said, the reports are positive on Mendoza. Are they going to be able to hang on? Again, I know there's lots of. I wasn't a fan when Mahomes came into the league, but there's obviously been lots of talk back of he bided his time and that's happened. Whilst I've been a fan, the majority of quarterbacks have kind of come in and got the job straight away. And so I find it quite hard. Drake May didn't, did he? May didn't get it. He was, again, I don't know, but that felt like he came in quite quickly potentially. So I would say, I'll say under, because I think, like you said, the excitement around it all, it could happen. And yeah, I think the fans will want it, and if the fans want it, why hold it off? So that's a tough one. 6. You've set the mark quite hard there, so but I'll go under.
Fair.
It's like I've got 100 quid on it. I'm really panicking. I'm like sweating more than I need. Oh, what's it? For the listeners, we do like a little flutter here and there, me and Smee, not against each other necessarily, but yes. So I know when you're looking at markets and things like that, it's with a view of I might get a couple of quid on this at some point.
Oh, believe me, they'll hear a lot more from me about my betting problems. We'll talk about that when the season gets underway. Right, so Matt Stafford and the Rams reached an agreement on a 1-year extension, and so he now has 2 years remaining on his current deal. Stafford's got all his big targets back. He played at an MVP winning level last season. He does have Ty Simpson looking to apply some pressure on him now as the long-term successor. Yes or no, will Stafford still be the Rams starter through to the end of this deal?
Yes. Yeah, I think he will. I could see him going back to back with MVP. The team hasn't regressed. He showed nothing to suggest he's going to regress. So can see him setting the standard again. And yeah, I think it's a real something you don't see all the time. I think it's just giving a player what they deserve almost, again, rather than it being this, we've just drafted a rookie and, you've only got 1 more year left of things. It's like, no, here's another year. You're our guy until you say you don't want to be our guy, basically, isn't it? That's the way I sort of read it. And especially with the reports on Simpson not being, he's not someone that should be nipping at his heels too quick. So definitely think it's Stafford's job till he doesn't want it. And whilst he's got it, I think he's right amongst the very best.
Agreed. And I think as long as McVay's there, I think that will stay the case as well. Stafford will still be his guy. But that was kind of an interesting point I heard about Simpson. So McVay's kind of been linked with leaving to do TV work or whatever at some point. And I'm just wondering with Simpson, if McVay was to move on when Simpson's time comes around, and we've obviously read and heard a lot about Nakua's problems over the past few months. Is it a dead certainty with Simpson that he's going to be the sort of long-term successor, the perfect fit for the Rams once Stafford hangs it up? Or do you see that still having some question marks just in terms of the situation he walks into when he becomes starter?
I don't know. It's such a high value pick, isn't it? That you think there's got to be some long-term vision. And I think McVay's always been pretty honest and open that, again, he's going to need a break at some point. So you'd think those conversations would have gone on in the room. And I think we all sort of alluded to McVay's quite weird answers, the night they drafted and all the rest of it, wasn't it? So maybe it took him a bit by surprise. So maybe there's some planning going on behind the scenes that, even he wasn't privy to initially and all the rest of it. So you'd think so. Yeah, I think you'd think so. But again, the Rams, they're active. They're one of the teams that, nobody can disclaim that they don't just chase rings. They're chasing to be the winners every year. So if he's not up to standard or there's other opportunities, they'll go after it.
It's never dull with the Rams, and it is never dull with the New York Giants. We had some momentary internal beef this week as Abdul Carter called out Jackson Dart for introducing Donald Trump at an event. But apparently they spoke as men, and so everything is okay again now. But perhaps more important, well, not perhaps, definitely more important, was John Harbaugh failing to give a great deal of reassurance on Malik Neighbours' injury. He described it as not a simple knee injury and that Neighbours was in the slog of his recovery. He didn't rule him out of being a participant at training camp. So I kind of feel the media response has been a bit weird and negative on this one, as it's obviously a serious injury. Harbaugh, to me at least, is just being cautious and stating the fact that it is a brutal rehab. But yes or no, should Neighbours dynasty owners, which includes me and you, be worried at this stage, not only over sort of how much time he's going to miss, but if this knee issue is a bit more serious than we thought? Because I swear it was only a couple of weeks ago, it was reported that he had a second procedure to clean it up. Everything looked a bit better. It was good. But it just feels like a very sharp turn on his prognosis now with what feels like a perception from the media.
I mean, the question being, should we be worried? Yes, I know I freaking am. It's, I think, again, I'm sure people are sick of hearing that I'm a Spurs fan, but we've had such bad injuries the last few years, and some of them, like, we had a player, Kulusevski, who we're told he'd be back in a week or two, and he's been out for 14 months, and one of those things where as soon as people aren't sort of decisive or confident with injuries, I really start to worry, and again, it's sort of that diagnosis, and you're like, the information you're getting is all just a little bit muddled, and it's just, again, I think sort of standard injuries, it's 8 weeks or it's 6 months, and then when it gets nearer, he's got 1 month left, and then he's on the, again, you just kind of get that clear runway. So anytime it's not that, I don't think it's the teams are being clever or anything. I just think actually there's something to be a bit worried about here, and something hasn't gone quite right or as expected. So, he's young enough that you'd hope it's nothing like a career ender or anything like that. But I've just got envisioning him now that, they just keep mentioning, he might be okay to suit up next week. He might. And then all of a sudden you're in December and he still hasn't got on the field. And it's sort of, one of those that just keeps dragging. And then, Giants don't make playoffs, heaven forbid. And he sits out the season. And it's one of those, just one of those things that I could just, in my mind's eye, I can envision that happening, where it's again, oh, no, yeah, it's okay. He's getting close. We just got to go carefully. But they never actually come back, or there's been a slight setback and things like that. So, I am desperate to be wrong because, again, I've invested a lot in him with how high, I managed to draft him and all the rest of it. And we want to see it. It's again, young players cut down by injuries sucks. Again, at least when it happens to vets, you've got a catalogue of work and of enjoyment of watching them play and things. The young ones are the ones I hate because, you never get to see them fulfill it or never really get to see what they could become. And obviously for them individually, it's absolutely brutal. But I think for fans of the sport as well, it sucks because that's probably one of the most exciting things about sports is the next great thing. And Neighbours certainly, was on a trajectory to be one of those.
Christ, Jack, I wasn't that worried a few minutes ago.
Good night, Sabine.
Cheers, mate. Oh dear, Malik, we wish you well. Please come back. Right, and then finally, another day and another NFL player reportedly being a scumbag. Unfortunately, it's been reported that Packers running back Josh Jacobs has been arrested on domestic abuse charges. We don't have to get too much into that side of it, even though that's obviously the biggest story here. But as I say, just scumbag behavior and also what we mentioned earlier, we do hear about it far too often with NFL players. The investigation is ongoing. If he is proven guilty of the charges, then that should result in a minimum 6-game ban, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what it's been previously. But for Jacob owners, that is not what you want to hear. Yes or no? Should Jacob holders hold the line or cut him? Because, as I say, we've seen this play out in the past where the initial story breaks. There's more and more detail that comes out. Suddenly the player is either at risk of being cut by the team or he's just sidelined for a prolonged period of time. So what's your take? Yes or no? Should Jacobs holders hold the line or cut him?
It's so hard because there's that moral side of you that, again, a little bit like Watson and stuff, personally, I just would never draft him. And yeah, there's just certain things that, my personal beliefs and things. I wouldn't ever want to be cheering on someone like that. Just so again, that's the moral decision. I feel really sorry for Matt, who joined us on the show a few weeks ago in our league, because the one pick he didn't make because he was at work and it ran into auto pick was Jacob. So now he's kind of got that. I saw someone in one of the leagues put him up for trade. And I'm like, what are you getting for that? What are people offering you for Jacob and stuff? But it is difficult because, again, we've invested a bit of money. You're hoping to win a bit of money. It is a bit of sport, so I can completely understand. Again, I'm not going to sort of morally judge or sort of, kind of demean someone's character if they do keep hold of Jacobs or anything like that. And again, there's always that sort of little bit of a line of, until proven guilty. But I think I did call this. I called this saying that I didn't like him. Okay, because he said something bad about Aaron Johnson. I knew there was something wrong. I knew he was a wrong end. I knew there was something there that, again, I think when we did the running back list, wasn't it? I was saying I didn't like him. So there you go. I'm a good character profile. So it is really tough. It is, I do get it. Sort of, it is tricky to do, but yeah, I think you've got to do it on an individual basis. And again, if you haven't got any other running backs and things, can you do it at this stage? Again, I know there's been a bit of a fight to kind of get onto the waiver wires to get sort of, the Marshawn Lloyds. And I think Ben Monk even humble bragged in our group that he was like, did anyone else grab Chris Brooks? Like, it was like, no, nobody had a freaking ounce of interest in Chris Brooks. So fair play to him. So there's a little scrambling on the waiver wire, which again, I find a little bit tough. I'd probably being the nice guy that I am, give Matt first dibs on kind of replacing a Pratt if he is proven guilty with the backup. But it is a really tricky one, and ultimately, I just hope he gets whatever it is he deserves. Depending on the outcome of the case.
Any other news that caught your attention this week, mate? I did see Daniel Jones is throwing at OTAs less than 6 months after he suffered that Achilles injury. That happened just before we started recording, so that's a big boost for the Colts. But anything else?
No, as you sort of say, there's like little reports coming out which start to be quite fun, don't they? With sort of, how rookies are looking, or sort of, how players or sort of people are sort of battling and things. So no, but nothing else really that stood out. I think Matt Jones did a slight contract revision with the 49ers. He's proven to be one of the best backups in the league, which is good. Lamar Jackson seems to be saying he wants to stay at the Ravens, because again, that's kind of been called into dispute a little bit, hasn't it? And things. But no, I think we've kind of gone over the majority of them.
Some of these Twitter accounts crack me up, though, because I'm pretty sure at this stage of the sort of preseason work, there's no contact. Like, they're going up for uncontested catches.
Yeah.
Some of these accounts are like, oh my God, Jeremiah Love looks incredible.
Yeah. He's just ran through 18 bags untouched.
But yeah, that sums it up at this stage of the season, unfortunately. Right, so that is a wrap on this episode of the Sunday League podcast. We hope you've enjoyed it, and there will be plenty more from us throughout the off-season. We'll have more reaction and analysis to our league drafts next week, and reaction to all the latest NFL news and much more in the way of segments. In the meantime, please do give this episode a like or leave a positive review if you've enjoyed it. Please subscribe. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcasts. And you can also follow us across all social media at Sunday League NFL. Quick reminder, as always, if you're listening and you want to get involved in our community of NFL fantasy football fans based in the UK, and you want to join one of our future leagues, we will be expanding moving forward. Please email us at sundayleaguenfl@gmail.com. And again, thanks to those who have already subscribed and are tuning into the pod. We really appreciate your support. Jack, any final thoughts before we sign off?
I think it's obviously, coming into a slight quieter period within the NFL world and stuff. So, really looking forward to kind of getting the guests on to sort of break down a little bit of their strategies and their thoughts on obviously their own drafts. And we just want to keep sharing the news we do see, keep trying to share some tips and ideas, because there's going to be loads of drafts going on across all different leagues and for people. So hopefully we can continue to sort of still be of use and a good listen until the juicy stuff kicks off again.
Definitely, mate. So if you've had your drafts like our network, then we hope you're happy with it. If your drafts are still coming up, good luck with that. But that is it from us for now. Thanks for listening to the Sunday League UK NFL podcast, and we will catch you next week.